Hello, everyone. If you enjoy my channel, please support me with one like, one subscribe, and one share.
The forgotten date. You know that moment when you are standing in the kitchen and the clock on the microwave is blinking 7:47 p.m. and you have been staring at that red number for what feels like an hour, but really it is only 3 minutes and your hand is still holding the spatula that you used to flip the chicken breast exactly 42 minutes ago, and the chicken is now cold, and the vegetables are getting that sad, wilted look, and you are wearing that dress that you bought 3 months ago from that small boutique in downtown Portland because you thought it would be perfect for tonight, and you even put on those earrings that your mother gave you when you graduated college, and you're still standing there, holding that stupid spatula like it is going to save you from what you are slowly realizing is about to happen, and your mind is racing through every possibility. Maybe he got stuck in traffic, maybe there was an accident, maybe his phone died, maybe, until you hear the key turn in the lock. And your heart jumps and then drops at the exact same time because you know immediately that something is wrong, and you know it from the way the door opens too slowly, and you know it from the way he puts down his briefcase without looking at you, and you know it from the way he says, "Hey babe," in that voice that is trying too hard to be normal. And in that moment you feel something break inside you, not loudly like a glass shattering, but quietly like a thread snapping in a piece of fabric that you have been wearing for years, and you do not realize until that moment how much you have been holding on to that thread until it is gone, and you are standing there in the kitchen with the cold chicken and the wilted vegetables and the earrings from your mother, and you say happy anniversary, and the words come out flat like they are not even yours, and you watch his face change and you see it, the recognition, the horror, the guilt, and you think, oh, there it is, that is the moment that I will remember forever. That is the moment when I realized that he forgot. And you feel your throat closing up and you want to cry, but you also want to laugh because it is so ridiculous, because it has been 5 years of marriage and 3 kids and a mortgage and a dog who eats the garbage and all of it, and he forgot, and you're still holding the spatula, and you realize that you have been holding it so tightly that your fingers are cramping, and you put it down slowly like it is made of glass. And you look at him and you say nothing, because what is there to say? And he says, "Oh my God, I am so sorry. I am so sorry." And you think, sorry for what? For forgetting, or sorry that I caught you forgetting? And that is the moment when your brain starts doing that thing it does where it replays every moment of the last week, looking for clues, looking for signs, looking for anything that told you this was coming, because you think maybe you should have known, maybe you should have reminded him, maybe you should have said something, but then you think, why should I have to remind him? Why should I have to be the one who remembers everything all the time? And that thought makes you angrier, because it is not just about tonight, it is about every night. It is about all the times you have been the one to remember: the birthdays, the doctor's appointments, the school plays, the parent-teacher conferences, and he shows up and he smiles and everyone thinks he is the good dad, the fun dad, the one who plays catch in the yard, and you think, yes, he is that dad, but he is also the dad who forgot his own anniversary, and you do not know why, but you remember something from your English class back in Vietnam when you were still learning the language, and your teacher told you that the most important word in any relationship is not love, it is not marriage, it is not even sorry, it is remember, because to remember someone is to hold them in your mind, and if you cannot hold someone in your mind, then how can you hold them in your heart? And you thought that was such a simple thing to say, but now standing in the kitchen in America with the cold chicken and the blinking microwave, you finally understand what she meant, because forgetting is not a small thing. Forgetting is not about calendars or reminders or busy schedules. Forgetting is about what is important to you, and if your anniversary is not important to him, then what is? And you hear his voice saying, "Let me fix this, let me make it right." And you think, can you fix this? And even as you think it, you know the answer is no, because you cannot fix something that is not broken. But is it broken? And that is the question that sits inside you like a stone that you accidentally swallowed, and you can feel it heavy in your chest, not sharp, but heavy, like it is pressing against something that you did not even know was there, and you look at his face. And you see the panic and you realize that he is afraid, and that surprises you because you thought you were the only one who was afraid, and you think, what is he afraid of? Losing me, losing us, losing the life that we built here in this country that was supposed to be our fresh start, because that is what America was supposed to be when you moved here with your dreams in a suitcase and your English still rough around the edges and your heart full of hope. You thought this place would give you everything: the house, the yard, the 2 cars, the kids with their American accents and their love for peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and their insistence on saying fall instead of autumn. And you got all of that. You got the American dream, and you got the American husband who is supposed to be your partner, your best friend, your everything. And now you are standing in your American kitchen, holding your American spatula, and thinking that maybe the American dream did not come with a guarantee that he would remember the things that matter most. And you want to scream, and you want to cry, and you want to throw the chicken at the wall, because it is not about the chicken, it is not about the dinner, it is not about the dress or the earrings. It is about the fact that for one day out of 365 days you wanted to be seen. You wanted to be remembered. You wanted to be the most important thing in the world to someone, and he could not even put it on his phone calendar. And that is the part that hurts the most, because it feels like you are invisible, like you are not the center of his universe, like you are just someone who lives in his house and takes care of his kids and makes his dinner and answers his questions about where his keys are, and you feel yourself sinking into that hole that women talk about in hushed voices at coffee shops and mom groups and therapy sessions, where they say, he does not see me anymore. And you always thought that was something that happened to other people, to older people, to people who let themselves go, or people who stopped trying, or people who fell out of love. But now you are here, and you are only 35, and you are still wearing earrings from your mother, and you feel invisible, and you wonder how long you have been invisible, and if you were invisible before tonight, or if tonight made you invisible, because maybe it is like that thing your neighbor told you about when she was telling you the story about her husband and his affair, and she said it was not the affair that broke her, it was the lying, it was the pretending, it was the fact that he looked at her every day and told her that she was everything while he was giving his everything to someone else. And you remember thinking that was so dramatic, so over the top, but now you understand, because it is not about the forgetting, it is about the pretending, it is about the fact that he said, I love you this morning, and kissed you on the forehead, and asked you what you wanted for dinner. And he did all of that while forgetting that today was the day that you got married 5 years ago in a courthouse in Virginia, because you were too poor for a wedding and too in love to care. And you remember that day so clearly. You remember the rain and the terrible bouquet that you bought from the grocery store, and the way he looked at you like you were the only woman in the world. And you think, how did we get here? How did we go from that to this? How did we go from rain and grocery store flowers to a house and 3 kids and a man who cannot remember the single most important day of your life? And you feel the tears coming, and you try to hold them back because you do not want to cry in front of him, because crying feels like giving up, and you're not ready to give up, but you also do not know how to fight. And you hear your phone buzzing on the counter, and you look at it, and it is your friend from the English conversation group that you go to every Tuesday, the one where you all sit in the church basement and practice your English with American volunteers. And she is asking how the anniversary dinner went, and you look at your phone, and then you look at him, and you think, what do I say? What can I possibly say? And you hear him talking again, and his voice sounds distant, like it is coming through water, and he is apologizing and apologizing, and you hear him say, I will make it up to you, I promise. And you think, promise, that word that you learned in your English class, and that you thought was so beautiful because it sounds like something you can hold onto, something solid and real. And now you wonder if promises are just sounds that people make to fill the silence, because what is the point of a promise if the person who makes it does not even remember what day you got married? And you put down the spatula, and you walk out of the kitchen, and you go to the bedroom, and you close the door, and you sit on the bed, and you think about all the ways that life has changed since you came to America, and all the ways that love has changed. And you wonder if the woman who stood in the rain with the grocery store flowers would even recognize the woman sitting on the bed right now, and you wonder if she would be proud, or if she would be disappointed, and you think about the English word for what you are feeling, and you cannot find it. Because some things do not translate, not because the words do not exist, but because the feeling is too big for any language, and you sit there in the quiet of the bedroom and you hear the dog barking outside and the kids laughing in the other room because they do not know what happened tonight. They do not know that their parents are standing on opposite sides of a canyon that was carved by forgetting, and you think this is what it means to be married. This is what it means to love someone for 5 years in America with all its promises and all its broken things, and you think maybe the secret is not about never being hurt. It is about how you heal when you are, and you do not know how to heal right now, and you do not know if you will ever heal, and you do not know if an apology that comes too late can fix something that was broken by silence, but you are about to find out because you hear his footsteps coming toward the door, and you do not know what you're going to say, but you know that whatever you say, it will be the truth, and that is all you can promise right now. And that is all you have left. The heavy silence. He is standing on the other side of the door, and you can hear him breathing, and you can hear the hesitation in the way his hand hovers over the wood. And you wonder how long he has been standing there, because time does not feel real anymore, and you are sitting on the edge of the bed with your hands in your lap, and you are staring at the pattern on the rug, and you are counting the loops in the carpet because counting is easier than thinking, and you have counted 67 loops when you hear the knock, and it is not a confident knock. It is the kind of knock that someone makes when they are not sure if they are allowed to enter their own bedroom, and that tells you everything because this is his house too, this is his room too, and he is knocking like a stranger, and you think about how strange that is, how you can live with someone for 5 years and share a bed and share children and share a life and still feel like strangers, and you say, "Come in," and your voice sounds hollow like it is coming from somewhere far away, and the door opens and he steps inside, and he looks smaller than you remember, like he has shrunk since you last looked at him in the kitchen, and he is holding something in his hands, and you cannot see what it is because the light from the hallway is behind him, and it makes his face look dark and shadowed, and he says, "I want to explain," and you say, "Okay," and the word is flat and empty because you do not want an explanation, because explanations are just words that people use to make themselves feel better, and you want to know why. You want to know the truth, not the explanation, and he sits down next to you on the bed, and you feel the weight of him on the mattress, and you think about how many nights you have sat on this bed together, and how many nights you have talked about the future, and how many nights you have made love, and how many nights you have fought, and how many nights you have cried, and how many nights you have laughed until your stomach hurt, and all of those nights are in this room, all of those nights are in this bed, all of those nights are in these walls, and now there is this night too, and you do not know where to put this night in your mind because it does not fit anywhere, and he says, "I forgot," and you think, "No shit," and he says, "I know that is not enough," and you think you are right, it is not enough, and he says, "I was so busy with work and the kids and the house," and you think, work and the kids and the house. Yes, those are all the things that you are busy with, those are the things that you spend your days on, but you do not say anything because you are too tired, and he says, "I am a terrible husband," and you think, no, you are not a terrible husband, you are a husband who forgot, you are a husband who made a mistake, there is a difference, and you surprise yourself with that thought. Because you are not ready to forgive him, but you are also not ready to throw him away, and that is the part that confuses you the most, because you thought you would be angrier, you thought you would be furious, you thought you would scream and cry and throw things, but instead you are just sitting here on the bed, counting the loops in the carpet like your grandmother used to do when she was worried about something, and you realize that you are becoming her, and you do not know if that is a good thing or a bad thing, and he says I was sitting at my desk today, and I looked at the date on my computer, and I thought, oh no, because the thought came into my head, and then it went away, and it did not come back until I walked through the door and saw you standing there with the chicken and the vegetables, and the look on your face, and I remember that look from the day we got married. I remember the look in your eyes when the judge said you may now kiss the bride, and your eyes were so bright, so full of hope, and tonight I saw those same eyes, but they were not bright anymore, and they were not full of hope, and I broke you, and I am so sorry. And you think about his words. And you think about the fact that he remembered the look in your eyes from 5 years ago, and you think he remembers that moment, but he forgot the day that moment happened, and you do not understand how that works, because how can someone remember the look in your eyes but not the date that made that look possible? And you think about the brain, and you think about memory, and you think about all the things that you learned in your English class about the way the mind works, and you remember reading something about how memory is not like a computer, it is not like a filing cabinet. It is more like a web where each piece of information is connected to other pieces, and sometimes the connections get tangled, and sometimes they break. And sometimes they just fade away, and you think maybe that is what happened with him, maybe the connection between the date and the memory faded. Because he has so many other things in his head, so many dates and appointments and meetings and schedules, that the important one got buried under all the noise. And you think about how life in America is so fast, so full, so busy that people do not have time to remember anything. And you think about how in Vietnam time moved differently. And you think about how you used to wake up to the sound of the market, and you used to walk to your grandmother's house, and you used to spend hours just sitting and talking, and you think about how you never had to remember anything, because nothing was ever forgotten, because there was not that much to remember. And you think about the irony of coming to America, the land of opportunity, the land of dreams, and finding that the dream comes with a price, and the price is that you forget what matters most, because there is too much else to hold on to. And he is still talking, and he is saying, I will make it up to you, I will take you to Hawaii, I will buy you something beautiful, I will do anything. And you think Hawaii is nice and jewelry is nice, but what you really want is for him to remember what you look like in the morning when you wake up with messy hair and sleepy eyes, because that is the real you, that is the you that he married. And you think about how he used to wake up before you and watch you sleep. And you used to pretend to be asleep so you could feel his eyes on you, and you think about how long it has been since he watched you sleep, and you do not know because you stopped paying attention. And you think about all the ways that love changes over time, and how it goes from being something that consumes you to something that holds you, and how it goes from being a fire to being a warm blanket, and you do not know which one is better, but you know that you miss the fire, and you look at him, and you see that he is crying, and you cannot remember the last time you saw him cry, because he is a strong man, an American man, who does not cry, because crying is for weak people. And you think about how your Vietnamese father never cried, not once in your entire life, and you think about how that broke something in your family, because there was so much emotion that never got expressed, so much love that never got spoken. And you promised yourself that you would marry a man who could cry, a man who could show his feelings, a man who could say he was sorry, and you married him, and now he is crying, and you should feel better, but you do not, because his tears do not fix the chicken, and they do not fix the dress, and they do not fix the night that you planned for weeks. And he is saying, please say something, please say anything, and you open your mouth to speak, and nothing comes out, because there are too many words and not enough space for them. And you think about the English language, and how many words it has, and how sometimes it has too many words and not enough meaning. And you think about how the Vietnamese word for love is you, and how it is only one syllable, and how it is so simple and so small, and yet it holds so much. And you think about how in English love can be a noun, and a verb, and an adjective, and it can be thrown around like confetti, and it can mean everything and nothing at the same time. And you wonder if that is the problem. If the word love has been used so much that it has lost its meaning because he says I love you all the time, he says it in the morning when he leaves for work, and he says it at night when he goes to sleep, and he says it when he hangs up the phone, and you hear it so often that you have stopped hearing it at all because the word has become background noise like the humming of the refrigerator or the sound of the traffic outside, and you think about the moment when love became noise, and you cannot remember exactly when it happened, but you know it happened because you are sitting here and you cannot feel the love even though he is sitting right next to you crying and saying all the right things, and you think about the psychology of forgetting and how people forget things that are not connected to strong emotions, and you think about how he did not forget because he does not love you. He forgot because the anniversary was not connected to an emotion that he could feel right now in the middle of all the chaos of his life. And you think about how you are the same because you forgot your mother's birthday last year, and you felt terrible, and you called her, and you said, I am so sorry, and she said, it is okay, my love, and you know she was hurt, but she did not show it because that is what mothers do. And you think about how forgiveness is something that you learn from your mother, and you're learning it right now. You're learning that love is not about never making mistakes, it is about how you fix them, and you think about the English word for grace, and how it means something that you give to someone who does not deserve it, and you think about whether you have grace in you, whether you can give him something that he does not deserve, and you do not know the answer, but you know that you are still sitting here, and you have not left. And that means something, that means there is still something, there's still something worth holding on to. And you think about your children asleep in their beds, and you think about their faces and their small hands and their belief that their parents are perfect, and you know that you are not perfect, and he is not perfect, but together you make something that is good enough. And you do not know if good enough is enough, but it is what you have, and you reach out and you take his hand, and his hand is cold and clammy, and you feel the fear and the guilt and the shame, and you feel his heart beating through his palm, and you think this is the man that you married, this is the man who loved you in the rain with the grocery store flowers, and this is the man who stood next to you in the courthouse and made promises that he is still trying to keep even though he is failing tonight. And you think about the weight of that, the weight of trying, and you know that trying is not the same as succeeding, but it is better than giving up, and you hold his hand, and you do not say anything because there is nothing to say, and the silence fills the room like water fills a glass, and you think about how silence can be heavy, and how it can be healing, and how it can be the space where love goes to rest, and you do not know if you are going to be okay, but you know that you are still here, and he is still here, and that is a beginning. The morning after. You wake up, and for a moment you do not know where you are because the light is wrong and the air feels different, and then you remember, and it hits you like a wave, and you feel your stomach drop because the night before was not a dream, it was real, and you turn your head, and he is not in the bed. And you feel a small panic because you think maybe he left, maybe he could not handle the silence, maybe he went to stay somewhere else, and you sit up too fast and your head spins, and you look around the room, and you see his phone on the nightstand, and you see his clothes from yesterday still on the chair, and you realize he is still here. He just got up early, and you do not know why that makes you feel better, but it does because him leaving would happen worse than him forgetting, because leaving is a choice and forgetting is a mistake, and you have always believed that you can fix a mistake. But you cannot fix someone who walks away, and you get out of bed, and you walk to the bathroom, and you look at yourself in the mirror, and you do not recognize the woman looking back at you because her eyes are puffy and her hair is a mess, and she looks like she has been crying even though you did not cry. You just sat there holding his hand in the dark, and you think about how crying would have been easier because at least crying releases something, but you did not cry because you are not sure if you have the right to cry, or if you have already cried too much, and you splash water on your face, and you think about your mother, and how she always told you that the morning after is the most important part of any fight, because the morning After is when you decide who you're going to be, and you think about her wisdom, and you think about all the things she taught you about love and marriage, and you realize that you did not listen to her as much as you should have, because she told you that marriage is not about being happy all the time, it is about showing up every day, and she told you that love is not a feeling, it is a decision, and she told you that the person who loves you will not always get it right, but they will always try to get it right, and you think about that word try, and you think about how your husband tries every day. He tries to be a good father, he tries to be a good provider, he tries to be a good husband, and sometimes he fails because he is human, and forgetting is human, and you know that in your mind, but your heart does not care about what your mind knows because your heart is still hurting, and you think about the psychology of emotional pain and how it operates in a different part of the brain than logical reasoning, and you think about how you cannot reason your way out of a broken heart because the heart does not speak the language of reason, it speaks the language of feeling, and you stand there in front of the mirror and you give yourself a small nod because you are still standing, and that is something, and you walk out of the bathroom. And you go to the kitchen, and the kitchen is different this morning because the chicken is gone, and the vegetables are gone, and the table is set with fresh coffee and fresh toast, and a plate of scrambled eggs, and there is a note propped up against the coffee mug, and you pick up the note and you read it, and his handwriting is messy because his hands were probably shaking, and the note says, I know this does not fix anything, but I wanted you to wake up to something that showed you I am trying, and you read it again, and then you read it a third time, because you are looking for the words that are not there, and you think about the note, and you think about the eggs and the coffee, and you think about how he must have gotten up early to go to the store. Because there were no eggs in the fridge last night, because you did not buy eggs because you were planning to make chicken, and you think about how he must have driven to the grocery store while you were still sleeping, and you think about him standing in the aisle trying to remember if you like your eggs scrambled or over easy, and you think about him not knowing because you have been married for 5 years, and he still does not remember how you like your eggs, and that makes you laugh a little because it is ridiculous, but it is also sweet that he tried, and you sit down at the table, and you eat the eggs, and they are overcooked and a little dry, but they are warm, and you think about how warm food is like a hug, and you think about how he is trying to hug you through scrambled eggs, and it is not a perfect hug, but it is a hug, and you hear him coming down the stairs, and he stops at the bottom of the stairs, and he looks at you, and you look at him, and there is a moment of silence that feels like it goes on forever, and then he says, I did not know if you would eat them because I did not know if you were still angry, and you say, I am still angry, and he says, I know, and you say, but I am not angry at you, I am angry at the situation, and he says, is that a real thing, or is that something people say to make themselves feel better, and you laugh because he is right, it is something people say, and you say, okay, I am angry at you, but I am also angry at myself because I should have said something, I should have reminded you, I should have done something, and he shakes his head, and he says, no, you should not have to remind me, I am a grown man, and you think about how that is the most grown-up thing he has said all night, and you think about how men are taught to be strong and independent and never ask for help, and you think about how that is so damaging because it means they do not know how to ask for what they need, and you think about your English classes and how you learned about the word vulnerable and how it means being open and exposed and how it is seen as a weakness in American culture, and you think about how that is wrong because vulnerability is the thing that connects people, and he is being vulnerable right now, standing in the hallway looking at you like you hold the power to destroy him or save him, and you realize that you do have that power and you do not want it because it is too heavy, and you say, come sit down, and he sits across from you, and you push the plate of eggs toward him, and he says, I already ate, and you say, eat with me anyway because I do not want to eat alone, and he picks up his fork and he eats a bite of the eggs, and you watch him, and you think about all the meals you have shared at this table, and all the conversations, and all the silences, and all the laughter, and all the tears, and You think about how this table has held your family for 5 years and how it will hold you again, and you say, I was thinking about something last night, and he says, what? And you say, I was thinking about how I came to America and how I thought everything would be perfect and how I was so naive. Because America is not perfect and love is not perfect and people are not perfect, and he says, I know, and you say, but I was also thinking about how I would not change it because this is my life now, and you are my life now, and our children are my life now. And he looks at you with such sadness in his eyes, and he says, I do not deserve you. And you say, maybe not, but you are stuck with me, and he laughs, and it is the first time you have heard him laugh since last night, and you think about how laughter is a kind of forgiveness, and you think about how you are not there yet, but you are getting closer. And you think about the research that says that couples who laugh together stay together, and you think about how you have been laughing less and less. And you make a promise to yourself that you are going to laugh more because life is too short to be serious all the time. And he says, I was also thinking about something last night. And you say, what? And he says, I was thinking about how you came to this country with nothing, and you built a life. And you built a family, and you learned a new language, and you navigated a new culture, and you did all of that while I was just here being American and taking everything for granted. And you think about that, and you think about the truth of it, because you did do all of that, and you did it without complaining, and you did it without asking for recognition. And you think about how immigrant women are the strongest people in the world because they have to be, because they do not have the luxury of being weak. And you think about your English teacher and how she told you that you would never really learn English until you stopped translating in your head and started thinking in English. And you think about how that is like love, because you never really love until you stop holding back, and you just let yourself love without thinking about it. And you think about how you have been translating love in your head. You have been holding back because you are afraid of getting hurt, and you think about how that fear has been sitting between you and your husband like a wall. And you think about how the anniversary was not the wall, it was just a crack in the wall, and the crack was already there. You just did not want to see it. And you think about your children and how they are learning from you and from him, and how they are learning what love looks like. And you think about what kind of love you want to show them, and you think about how love is not about being perfect, it is about being present. And he is present right now. He is sitting at the table eating dry eggs with you, and he is present, and that is something. And you think about all the ways that you are going to show up for each other, and you think about how the morning after is not the end, it is the beginning. And you finish your eggs and you drink your coffee, and you say, I want to do something today. And he says, what? And you say, I want to go to that park, the one where we had our first picnic, because I want to remember why I fell in love with you. And his face changes, and you see hope in his eyes, and you think about how hope is a dangerous thing, but it is also the only thing that keeps us going. And you think about the word hope and how it is one of the most beautiful words in the English language because it implies that things can get better. And you think about the Vietnamese word hai vong and how it means to look forward with expectation. And you think about how you are looking forward right now for the first time since last night, and you are looking forward with expectation, and you do not know if it will work, but you're going to try, because that is what love is. Love is trying, and love is showing up, and love is eating dry scrambled eggs with someone who forgot your anniversary, because they are human and you are human, and that is all any of us can be. The honest apology. You drive to the park in silence, and the silence is not the heavy silence from last night. It is a different kind of silence. It is the kind of silence that happens when two people are trying to find the right words, and neither of them knows what the right words are. And you watch the trees go by, and you watch the houses go by, and you think about all the people living in those houses, and you wonder if any of them are going through the same thing you are going through, because statistically some of them must be, because marriage is hard and forgetting is common, and you are not special in your pain, which is both comforting and depressing. And you park the car and you get out, and the air smells like grass and sunshine, and you walk to the spot where you had your first picnic 5 years ago, and the spot looks different because the tree has grown and the bench is new and the grass is greener. But you can still feel the memory of that day, you can still feel the way his hand felt in yours, and you can still feel the way your heart raced when he said he wanted to spend the rest of his life with you, and you sit down on the grass, and he sits down next to you, and there is a distance between you that was not there 5 years ago, and you think about how distance can be measured in inches and in years and in unspoken words, and you say, I remember this place, and he says, I remember it too, and you say, what do you remember? And he says, I remember that you were wearing a yellow dress, and your hair was blowing in the wind, and you were laughing at something I said, and I thought to myself, I am going to marry this woman even if it kills me. And you think about that, and you think about how he remembers the dress and the wind and the laugh, and you think about how he remembers all the details that do not matter and forgets all the details that do, and you think about how that is the most human thing in the world, and you say, why do you think you forgot? And he takes a deep breath, and he says, I have been thinking about that all night and all morning, and I think it is because of my father. And you are surprised because he never talks about his father, and you say, what about your father? And he says, my father forgot everything. He forgot my birthday, he forgot my school plays, he forgot my graduation, and I spent my whole life telling myself that I would never be like him, because I saw what it did to my mother, and I saw how she would sit at the table with her hands in her lap and her eyes empty, and I promised myself that I would remember, and I would show up, and I would be present, and I have been trying so hard to be present that I forgot that presence is not about being there. It is about being there in your mind and in your heart, and I was so focused on being a good father to our children that I forgot to be a good husband to you, and I think that is the part that hurts the most, because I was trying to do the right thing, and I ended up doing the wrong thing. And you sit there and you listen to him, and you think about his father, and you think about how our parents shape us, and how we spend our lives trying to be like them or trying not to be like them, and you think about your own father, and how he worked so hard, and how he never said I love you, because words were not his language, and you think about how his silence taught you that love is shown, not spoken, and you think about how you married a man who speaks love freely and easily, and you think about how you married him because he was the opposite of your father, and now you are realizing that he carries his own wounds from his own father, and you think about the psychology of intergenerational trauma and how it passes down through families like a sickness that no one talks about, and you think about how his father forgot, and now he forgot, and you wonder if your children will forget too, because that is how it works. The patterns repeat themselves unless someone breaks them, and you think about whether you can break the pattern or if you are doomed to repeat it, and you say, tell me about your father, and he looks at you with surprise because you have never asked before, because he has never offered, and he says, my father was a good man, but he was not a present man. He was always thinking about something else, something bigger, something more important. And I remember being 7 years old and waiting for him to come to my baseball game, and the game ended, and he never came, and my mother picked me up and she said, he is busy, honey, and I thought busy is a word that means other people are more important than you, and I carried that feeling for a long time, and I think I still carry it, because I am always trying to prove that I am not busy, that I am not absent, that I am not him. And you think about how his father shaped him, and how he shaped himself in opposition to his father, and you think about how he has been trying his whole life to be different, and how that effort has exhausted him, and how that exhaustion made him forget, and you think about how forgetting is not always about not caring. Sometimes it is about caring so much about too many things that you cannot hold on to any of them, and you think about the brain and how it works like a computer with limited RAM, and you think about how his RAM is full of work and kids and bills and responsibilities, and the anniversary just got bumped out of the system because there was no room for it, and you think about how that is not an excuse, but it is an explanation, and Explanations are not the same as excuses because explanations help you understand and excuses help you avoid, and you say I understand and he says you do and you say I do because I forget things too, and he says you never forget anything, you remember everything, and you laugh and you say I remember everything because I am a woman, and that is what we are trained to do. We are trained to remember the birthdays and the anniversaries and the children's schedules because no one else is going to do it, and he looks at you and he says that is not fair, and you say no, it is not fair, but it is true, and he says I want to make it fair. I want to share the remembering with you because I do not want you to carry all of it alone, and you feel something shift in your chest, and you think about how he is not just apologizing for forgetting, he is apologizing for a lifetime of making you carry the mental load, and you think about how women all over the world carry that load every day, and how they never get a break because the load is invisible, and you think about how the load is heavy not because the things themselves are heavy, but because there are so many of them, and you say I do not need you to remember everything, I just need you to remember me, and he says I do remember you, and you say then why did you forget, and he says because I did not separate you from the day. I thought about you all week. I thought about you when I was at work, and I thought about you when I was in the car, and I thought about you when I was putting the kids to bed, and I thought about you all the time, but I did not think about the date, and I think that is the difference because I love you every day, but I did not love the day, and you think about that, and you think about how he loves you in the mundane moments, in the ordinary moments, in the moments that do not have names, and you think about how maybe that is more important than remembering a date because love is not about dates, it is about days, and he gives you every day, even the ones where he forgets, and you think about how forgiveness is not about erasing the past, it is about accepting the past and moving forward with what you have learned, and you think about how you have learned something today that you did not know yesterday, and what you learned is that he is afraid of becoming his father, and he is afraid of failing you, and he is afraid of being a disappointment, and he is so afraid that he creates the thing he is afraid of because fear makes you forget, because fear makes you small, and you say I am afraid too, I am afraid of being invisible, and I am afraid of being forgotten, and I am afraid that one day you will look at me and you will not see me because I have become part of the background like the furniture or the walls, and he says I see you, I have always seen you, and you say then prove it not today, not tomorrow, but every day, and he says I will, and you think about the word will and how it is the most powerful word in the English language because it is the word of intention and commitment, and you think about how he is committing to something that is hard, and you think about how commitment is the thing that keeps marriages alive, not feelings, not passion, not romance, just the simple act of choosing each other every single day. And you think about how you are choosing him right now even though he hurt you because you believe he is worth it, and you believe your marriage is worth it, and you believe that your children deserve to see their parents fight for each other, and you say I do not want Hawaii, and I do not want jewelry, and I do not want a grand gesture, because what I want is for you to be here with me in this moment right now, and that is enough. And he looks at you and his eyes are wet, and he says I love you, and you say I love you too, and you mean it in a way that you have not meant it in a long time, because love is not about the big moments, it is about the small ones, and this moment right here on the grass in the park is a small moment, and it is also the biggest moment of your marriage because it is the moment you chose to stay, and you think about how every marriage is a series of moments like this, moments where you choose to stay even when it would be easier to go, and you think about how you have been choosing to stay every day for 5 years without realizing it, and you think about how that is what love is a choice, and you are making that choice again right now. And you think about the English word forgiveness and how it sounds like giving, and you think about how forgiveness is giving someone a second chance, and you're giving him a second chance, and you are giving yourself a second chance, and you think about how giving is better than taking, and how second chances are better than first chances because they come with wisdom, and you look at him and you say, we are going to be okay. And he says, I know, and you think about how you do not know for sure, but you believe it, and believing is enough for now. Understanding each other. You sit on the grass for a long time, and the sun moves across the sky, and the shadows change, and you watch a family play with their dog, and you watch a couple argue about something small, and you watch a child chase a butterfly, and you think about how life goes on all around you even when your own life feels like it has stopped, and you think about how the world does not care about your problems because the world has its own problems, and that is both comforting and terrifying because it means you are not special, but it also means you are not alone. And you look at your husband, and you think about how you have been married for 5 years, and how you have never really talked about the hard things. You have talked about the kids, and the house, and the money, and the future, but you have never talked about the fear, and the doubt, and the insecurity, and you think about how that is the problem. You have been building a life together, but you have not been building a foundation together, because a foundation needs honesty, and you have not been honest with each other, not about the big things, not about the things that keep you up at night. And you say, I want to tell you something, and he says, I am listening, and you say, I am scared all the time. I am scared that I am not a good mother, and I am scared that I am not a good wife, and I am scared that I came to this country and left everything behind, and sometimes I do not know who I am anymore. And he looks at you, and you can see that he is surprised because you have never said those words out loud, and you think about how women are taught to be strong and capable and put together, and you think about how you have been performing strength for so long that you forgot that you are allowed to be weak, and you say, when I came to America, I thought I would find myself, but instead I lost myself because I became someone's wife and someone's mother and someone's immigrant, and I do not know where I end, and those roles begin. And he says, I never knew you felt that way, and you say, of course you did not know because I never told you, and he says, why did you never tell me? And you say, because I did not want you to see me as weak, and he says, weakness is not the same as honesty, and you think about that, and you think about how honesty is the bravest thing you can do, because honesty means showing someone your insides and trusting that they will not use them against you. And you think about how you have been hiding your insides from him for 5 years, and you think about how he has been hiding his insides from you, and you think about how you have been living as strangers who share a bed and a house and children, and you think about the Vietnamese word for honesty, and it is trung tuc, and it means to be true, and you think about how you have not been true to yourself or to him, and you say, I want to start over, I want to start being honest with you, and he says, me too, and you say, I am scared that we are going to become our parents, I am scared that I am going to become my mother, who never said what she felt, and he says, I am scared that I am going to become my father, who never showed up, and you sit there in the park, and you think about how you are both carrying the same fear, and you think about how fear is the thing that separates people, because fear makes you hide, and fear makes you lie, and fear makes you forget, and you think about how love is the thing that conquers fear. Because love is brave, and love is honest, and love is showing up even when you are scared, and you say, I need you to tell me the truth about everything. Even the small things, especially the small things, because small lies become big lies, and he says, I will, and you think about how the word will is a promise, and you think about how promises are easy to make and hard to keep, and you think about how you have made promises to each other that you have not kept, and you think about how you are going to change that starting now, and you say, tell me something you have never told me, and he thinks for a moment, and he says, I am jealous of you, and you are surprised because you have never thought of him as jealous, and you say, jealous of what? And he says, I am jealous of your bravery. I am jealous that you left everything you knew and came to a country where you did not speak the language, and you built a life, and you did it all without complaining. And I think about how I have never done anything that brave in my entire life because I was born here, and I speak the language, and I have everything handed to me, and I still cannot remember my own anniversary. And you think about that, and you think about how he sees you as brave, and you have never seen yourself as brave because you have been too busy surviving to see yourself as anything, and you say, I am not brave, I am just scared. And he says that is what bravery is being scared and doing it anyway. And you think about the psychology of courage and how courage is not the absence of fear, it is the action taken in the presence of fear. And you think about how you have been acting in the presence of fear every single day since you got on that plane from Vietnam. And you think about how you did not know that was courage, you thought it was just survival, and you say, I am jealous of you too. And he says, what could you possibly be jealous of? And you say, I am jealous of your confidence. I am jealous that you walk into a room and you assume that people will like you, and I walk into a room and I assume that people will judge me, and he says, I never knew that. And you say, of course you did not know because I never told you, and you both laugh because it is ridiculous that you have been married for 5 years and you are just now discovering each other. And you think about how marriage is supposed to be about knowing someone completely. And you think about how you do not know him completely and he does not know you completely. And you think about how that is the real work of marriage. Not the anniversary dinners and the vacations and the date nights, but the slow work of uncovering each other layer by layer. And you think about how you're going to start that work right now. And you say, tell me more. And he says, tell me more. And you spend the afternoon talking about things that you have never talked about before. You talk about your childhoods and your fears and your dreams and your disappointments. And you talk about what it felt like to be a child in Vietnam and what it felt like to be a child in America. And you talk about the things you wanted to be when you grew up and the things you actually became. And you talk about the moments that shaped you and the moments that broke you and the moments that made you who you are. And you think about how you are learning to see each other for the first time. And you think about how seeing someone is different from looking at someone. Because looking is passive and seeing is active, and you have been looking at each other for 5 years, but you have not been seeing each other, and you think about how this is what forgiveness really is. Forgiveness is seeing someone as they are and loving them anyway, and you think about how you are seeing him right now and you love him anyway even though he forgot, because he is not just the man who forgot, he is the man who is trying to remember. And he is the man who is scared and brave and jealous and honest all at the same time. And you think about how humans are complicated and love is complicated and marriage is complicated and none of it is simple, but none of it is impossible. And you say, I think we're going to be okay. And he says, I think so too. And you think about how you're not sure, but you're going to try, and trying is enough. And you think about the English word enough and how it means having what you need. And you think about how you have what you need right now in this moment. You have him and he has you, and that is enough. The American way of love. You're sitting in the park and the sun is starting to set and the sky is turning orange and pink and purple, and you think about how American sunsets are different from Vietnamese sunsets because the colors are more dramatic and the sky goes on forever. And you think about how everything in America is bigger and brighter and more dramatic, including the love. And you think about how American love is different from Vietnamese love because American love is loud and American love is visible and American love is about grand gestures and public declarations. And you think about how your husband proposed to you in a restaurant in front of everyone and you were embarrassed because in Vietnam love is private and love is quiet and love is something that you do not show to the world because the world does not need to know. And you think about how you have been struggling with this cultural difference for 5 years because you want to be loved the American way, but you also want to be loved the Vietnamese way, and you do not know if that is possible because the two ways are so different. And you say to him, I have been thinking about something, and he says, what? And you say, I have been thinking about how we love differently. And he says, what do you mean? And you say, I mean that you love me in a way that is American and I love you in a way that is Vietnamese, and sometimes those ways do not match. and he says, explain it to me, and you think about how you are going to explain something that is so deeply cultural and so deeply personal, and you say in Vietnam love is about sacrifice, love is about giving up things for the people you love, and my mother worked her whole life, and she never complained, and she never asked for anything, and she loved us by giving and giving. And giving until there was nothing left, and I learned from her that love is about being invisible, and about giving without receiving, and he says that sounds exhausting, and you think about how it is exhausting because it is, and you say in America love is about partnership, love is about two people who are equal and who support each other and who share everything, and that is beautiful, but it is also strange to me because I was not raised to expect equality. I was raised to expect sacrifice, and I think that is why I am so angry about the anniversary, because I was sacrificing my needs and my wants and my feelings, and I was doing it silently, and I was doing it invisibly, and I was doing it because that is what love is supposed to be. And then you forgot, and it felt like all my sacrifices meant nothing, because you could not even remember the one day that was supposed to be about us. And he looks at you, and he says, I never thought about it that way. And you say, of course you did not, because you are American, and you were raised to believe that love is about being seen and being heard and being valued, and you have been trying to make me seen and heard and valued, but I have been hiding from you because hiding is what I know. And you think about how culture is not just about food and language, and holidays. Culture is about how you love and how you fight and how you forgive and how you show up for each other, and you think about how you have been trying to love him the Vietnamese way, and he has been trying to love you the American way, and you have been speaking different languages of love, and you think about the book that your friend gave you about the 5 love languages, and you think about how the book is so popular in America because Americans love to categorize everything, and you think about how your love language is acts of service because that is what your mother taught you, and his love language is words of affirmation because that is what he needs, and you think about how you have been giving him acts of service when he needs words, and he has been giving you words when you need acts, and you think about how neither of you is getting what you need, and you say, I think we need to learn each other's love language, and he says, what does that mean? And you say, it means that I need to learn to accept your words as love, and you need to learn to accept my actions as love. And we need to meet somewhere in the middle, and you think about how the middle is the hardest place to be, because it requires compromise, and compromise requires letting go of what you know, and you think about how you have been holding on to your Vietnamese way of loving, because it is familiar, and because it is safe, and because it is what your mother taught you, but your mother is in Vietnam, and you are in America, and you have to learn to love in a new way because you are in a new place and you are a new person, and you are not the woman who got on the plane 5 years ago. You are someone different, and that someone different needs to love differently. And he says, I want to learn your way. And you say, I want to learn your way. And you think about how learning is hard and learning is uncomfortable and learning is slow. And you think about how learning a new language is the same as learning a new way to love, because both require you to make mistakes, and both require you to be vulnerable, and both require you to try and fail and try again. And you think about your English classes and how you felt so stupid when you made mistakes, and how you felt so embarrassed when you could not find the right word, and how you felt so frustrated when people could not understand you, and you think about how loving him feels the same way because you are making mistakes, and you are embarrassed, and you are frustrated, and you want to give up, but you cannot give up because giving up is not an option. And you say, I think we need to practice loving each other the way we practice English. And he says, what do you mean? And you say, I mean that we need to be patient, and we need to be kind, and we need to accept that we are going to make mistakes, and we need to keep trying even when it is hard. And he says, that sounds like a good plan, and you think about how simple it sounds, but how hard it is, and you think about how love is like a language because you have to learn it and practice it and use it every day, and you think about how you have been speaking the wrong language of love to each other, and you think about how you can learn a new language if you want to because you already learned English and that was hard and you did it. And love is hard, but you can do it too, and you think about the psychology of habit and how habits are formed through repetition and consistency, and you think about how you need to form new habits of loving each other the way the other person needs to be loved, and you think about how that means that he needs to learn to show love through actions, and you need to learn to receive love through words, and you both need to learn to speak the other person's language, and you think about how that is going to take time and effort and patience, and you think about how you are willing to do it because he is worth it, and your marriage is worth it, and your children are worth it, and you say we are going to practice every day, and he says we are, and you think about how you have been trying to be perfect in your love and in your marriage and in your life, and you think about how trying to be perfect is what made you forget to be present, and you think about how you are going to stop trying to be perfect and start trying to be present, and you think about how being present is the most important thing you can do for someone because being present means showing up and being there and paying attention, and he is present right now and you are present right now, and that is more important than any anniversary dinner, and you think about how the anniversary dinner was not the point was being seen and being remembered, and he sees you now, and he remembers you now, and that is what matters in you. Think about how the American way of love is not better or worse than the Vietnamese way, it is just different, and you think about how different does not mean wrong, it just means different, and you think about how you're going to learn to love in a new way, and you're going to teach him to love in a new way, and you're going to build a new language of love together, and you think about how that is the most romantic thing you have ever imagined, and it has nothing to do with flowers or diamonds or fancy dinners, and it has everything to do with showing up and being seen and being honest and being present, and you think about how this is what real love looks like, and you think about how you are ready for it, and you think about how he is ready for it, and you think about how you are going to build something beautiful together from this broken moment, and you think about how broken things can be remade into something stronger and more beautiful than before, and you think about the Japanese art of kintsugi where they repair broken pottery with gold, and you think about how your marriage is like that. The cracks are going to be filled with gold, and the gold is going to be understanding and patience and honesty and forgiveness, and you are going to be more beautiful for having been broken, and you think about how that is the American dream. That you came here for not the house and the car and the money, but the chance to be remade into something new and something better, and you think about how you are being remade right now in this park in this moment, and you are not the same person you were yesterday, and he is not the same person he was yesterday, and you are becoming new people together, and that is the most American thing you can do because America is a country of people who came from somewhere else and remade themselves, and you are an American now because you are remaking yourself, and you are remaking your marriage, and you are remaking your life, and you think about how that is beautiful, and you think about how that is hard, and you think about how you are going to do it anyway because that is who you are. Small gestures, big love. You drive home from the park, and the sun has set, and the streetlights are coming on, and the world looks different somehow, like everything has been washed clean, and you think about how a single day can change everything, and you think about how yesterday you were standing in the kitchen holding a spatula and feeling invisible, and today you are sitting in the car next to your husband and feeling seen, and you think about how fast things can change and how slow things can change and how both are true at the same time, and you pull into the driveway, and the house looks different too because it is not just a house anymore. It is a place where you're going to practice loving each other in a new way, and you get out of the car, and you walk to the front door, and he puts his hand on your back, and it is a small gesture, but it feels huge because yesterday you were not sure if you would ever want him to touch you again, and today you lean into it, and you think about how small gestures are the things that hold a marriage together, not the big Things not the vacations and the anniversaries and the gifts, but the small things like a hand on the back and a cup of coffee in the morning and a note on the counter, and you think about how you have been ignoring the small gestures because you have been waiting for the big ones, and you think about how that is a mistake because big gestures happen once a year and small gestures happen every day, and you think about how you need to start noticing the small gestures, and you need to start making small gestures, and you need to start appreciating the small things because the small things are the things that actually matter. And you walk into the house and the kids are already asleep and the babysitter is watching TV, and you thank her. And she leaves and you are alone in the house with him, and the silence is different now. It is not heavy, it is soft. And you say, I want to start something new. And he says, what? And you say, I want us to do one small thing for each other every day. And he says, like what? And you say, like you make me coffee in the morning and I make you lunch for work and you leave me a note and I leave you a note, and we hold hands when we watch TV and we say, I love you, and we mean it. And he says, that sounds easy, and you say it is not easy because easy things become invisible and we need to see them and we need to notice them and we need to appreciate them. And you think about the psychology of gratitude and how gratitude is not just a feeling, it is a practice. And you think about how you have been practicing complaining instead of practicing gratitude, and you think about how that is going to change starting now. And you say, I want to tell you something. And he says, I am listening. And you say, I noticed that you got up early this morning to make me breakfast, and I noticed that you went to the store to buy eggs, and I noticed that you left me a note, and I noticed that you were trying, and I am grateful. And he looks at you, and you can see that your words mean something to him because he has been trying so hard, and no one has noticed. And you think about how people need to be seen, and they need to be appreciated, and they need to know that their efforts are not invisible. And you think about how you have been invisible to each other, and you think about how you are going to change that because seeing each other is the most important thing you can do. And you think about the research on marriage and happiness and how the happiest couples are the ones who notice the small things and express gratitude for them. And you think about how you're going to become one of those couples, and you say, I have an idea. And he says, what? And you say, let's make a list of all the small things we appreciate about each other, and let's share it every week. And he says, that sounds like a good idea. And you think about how simple it is and how powerful it is. And you think about how you have been making things so complicated, and love is not complicated. Love is simple, and love is small, and love is in the details. And you think about the Vietnamese word for gratitude, and it is beat on, and it means to know the favor. And you think about how you have been forgetting to know the favor. You have been forgetting to notice all the ways he shows up for you every day. And you think about how he forgets your anniversary, but he remembers to take out the trash, and he remembers to pick up the kids, and he remembers to pay the bills, and he remembers to fix things around the house, and he remembers to kiss you goodbye every morning, and he remembers to tell you he loves you every night. And you think about how you have been focusing on the one thing he forgot instead of the 1,000 things he remembered. And you think about how that is not fair because he is human, and humans forget, and humans make mistakes, and humans are imperfect, and you are human too, and you forget things too, and you make mistakes too, and you are imperfect too. And you think about how you need to extend the same grace to him that you want him to extend to you. And you say, I am sorry for making you feel like you are not enough. And he says, you do not have to be sorry. And you say, I am sorry anyway because I have been so focused on what you are not doing that I have not been seeing what you are doing. And you think about how that is a universal problem in marriage, that people focus on the negative and ignore the positive. And you think about the brain and how it is wired to notice threats and problems and dangers because that is how humans survived. And you think about how your brain has been treating your marriage like a danger zone where you are always looking for the thing that is going to hurt you. And you think about how you need to retrain your brain to notice the good things instead of the bad things. And you think about how that is going to take time and practice and effort. And you think about how you are willing to do it because he is worth it and your marriage is worth it, and you say, I want to start a new habit, and he says, what? And you say, I want to start noticing 3 good things about you every day and telling you what they are, and he says that is the most romantic thing anyone has ever said to me, and you laugh because it is not romantic in the traditional sense, but it is romantic in the real sense because romance is not about flowers and candles and fancy dinners. Romance is about paying attention and noticing and caring, and you think about how you have been waiting for a romance to come to you instead of creating it yourself, and you think about how you are going to create it starting now by noticing the small things and appreciating the small things and celebrating the small things, and you think about how your children are going to learn from you, and they're going to learn that love is not about the big gestures, love is about the small gestures, and they're going to learn that marriage is not about being perfect, it is about being present, and they're going to learn that happiness is not something that happens to you, it is something that you create through attention and gratitude and effort, and you think about how you're going to give them that gift because that is the most important gift. You can give your children not money or things or opportunities, but the gift of knowing how to love and how to be loved, and you think about how that is the legacy you want to leave, and you think about how you are going to start building that legacy tonight with a small gesture, and you turn to him and you say thank you for today. And he says, thank you for giving me a second chance. And you say second chances are the most beautiful things in the world because they mean that someone believes in you and you believe in him and he believes in you. And that is what love is believing in each other, even when it is hard, especially when it is hard. And you think about how you are going to believe in him every day and he is going to believe in you every day. And you're going to build something beautiful together through small gestures that add up to a lifetime of love, and you think about how that is the real meaning of marriage, and you think about how you are finally starting to understand it after 5 years, and you think about how it is never too late to learn, and it is never too late to change, and it is never too late to start over, and you think about how you are starting over tonight, not forgetting the past, but learning from it and using it to build a better future. And you think about how that is the most American thing you can do because America is the land of second chances and you have been given a second chance and you are going to take it and you're going to make the most of it and you're going to be grateful for it every single day. And you think about how you're going to start tonight with a small gesture. And you reach out and you take his hand and you squeeze it and you say, I love you. And he says, I love you too. And you mean it and you feel it and it is real. And that is all that matters. Family and happiness. You wake up the next morning and the light is different because the sun is brighter and the birds are louder and you feel different because something has shifted inside you, and you do not know exactly what it is, but you know that it is good, and you get out of bed, and you walk to the kitchen, and he is already there making coffee, and he turns around, and he smiles, and you think about how a smile can change everything, and you think about how you have not been smiling at each other enough, and you think about how you are going to change that starting now, and you walk over to him, and you put your arms around him and you hug him, and you think about how a hug is a small thing, but it is also a big thing because a hug says, I am here and I am not leaving, and you need to know that you are not alone. And you think about how he needs to know that he is not alone because he has been carrying so much. And he has been carrying it alone because you have not been showing up for him the way he needs you to. And you think about how marriage is about showing up for each other even when it is hard, especially when it is hard. And you hear the kids waking up and you hear their little feet running down the hall and you hear their voices and you think about how they are the best thing that ever happened to you. And you think about how they are the reason you fight for your marriage. And you think about how they are the reason you keep going even when you want to give up because they deserve to see what love looks like, and they deserve to know that love is not always easy, but it is always worth it, and you think about how you're going to show them that love is worth it by loving their father, and by letting their father love you, and you think about how that is the greatest gift you can give them, and your daughter runs into the kitchen, and she wraps her arms around your legs, and she says, "Good morning, Mommy," and you feel tears in your eyes. Because she is so small and so pure and so full of love, and you think about how children are born knowing how to love, and it is adults who forget. And you think about how you have been forgetting, and you think about how you are going to remember from now on, and your son comes in, and he is rubbing his eyes, and he says, "Can we have pancakes?" And you look at your husband, and you both laugh, because pancakes are the thing that your son always wants, and you say, "Yes, we can have pancakes," and you think about how pancakes are a small thing, but they are also a big thing, because pancakes mean family, and pancakes mean Saturday morning, and pancakes mean sitting around the table together and talking and laughing and being present with each other, and you think about how you have been missing those Saturday mornings because you have been too busy and too tired and too distracted, and you think about how you are going to be present from now on, because being present is the most important thing you can do for your children, and you make the pancakes, and you sit down at the table, and you eat together, and you talk about nothing, and you talk about everything, and you laugh about something silly that your son said. And you think about how laughter is the music of a happy home, and you think about how your home has been too quiet, and you think about how you're going to fill it with laughter from now on, and you think about how your parents in Vietnam never laughed together because they were too busy surviving, and you think about how you want something different for your children. You want them to grow up in a home where laughter is the background. Noise and love is the air they breathe, and you think about how that is the American dream, that you came here for not the house or the car or the money, but the freedom to create a different kind of family, and you think about how you are creating that family right now in this kitchen with these pancakes and these children, and this man who forgot your anniversary, but who is showing up for you today, and you think about how showing up is what matters, and you think about how he is showing up, and you are showing up, and that is enough, and you look at your husband, and you think about how he is a good father, and you think about how he plays with the kids, and he reads them stories, and he tucks them in at night, and he teaches them things that you could never teach them because you did not grow up here, and you think about how that is the beauty of your marriage. You bring different things to the table, and together you are complete, and you think about how you have been focusing on what he does not do instead of what he does, and you think about how that is a choice, and you are choosing to see the good from now on, and you think about the psychology of happiness and how happiness is not about what happens to you, it is about how you interpret what happens to you, and you think about how you have been interpreting your marriage through the lens of disappointment, and you think about how you're going to interpret it through the lens of gratitude from now on, and you think about how gratitude is the shortcut to happiness, and you think about how you're going to practice gratitude every single day, and you say, "I want to say something," and everyone looks at you, and you say, "I am grateful for this family, and I am grateful for this kitchen, and I am grateful for these pancakes. And I am grateful for all of you," and your husband looks at you with soft eyes, and your children look at you like you are the center of their universe. And you think about how you are the center of their universe, and you think about how that is a responsibility and a privilege, and you think about how you're going to take that responsibility seriously, and you're going to create a home where they feel safe and loved and seen, and you think about how that is the most important job you have, and you think about how you have been distracted by the noise of life, and you think about how you are going to quiet the noise and focus on what matters, and you think about how what matters is right here at this table with these people, and this food, and this love, and you think about how you almost lost it because you were so focused on what you did not have that you could not see what you did have, and you think about how you are not going to make that mistake again, and you think about how you are going to be present for every single moment, because moments are all we have, and moments are precious, and moments are fleeting, and you think about how your children are going to grow up so fast, and you are going to miss it if you are not paying attention, and you think about how you are going to pay attention from now on, and you think about how you are going to put down your phone and turn off the TV and stop worrying about the future and be here now, because now is all there is, and you think, about how being present is the greatest gift you can give your family, and you look at your husband and you think about how he has been trying to be present and you have been pushing him away, and you think about how you are going to pull him close from now on, and you think about how you are going to build a family that is strong and resilient and full of love, and you think about how that is going to take work, but you are ready to work because the reward is worth it, and you think about how the reward is sitting right in front of you eating pancakes with sticky fingers and messy hair, and the reward is the most beautiful thing you have ever seen, and you think about how you are going to be grateful for this reward every single day for the rest of your life, and you think about how that is not a burden, it is a blessing, and you think about how you are going to embrace that blessing with both arms wide open, and you think about how you're going to build a home that is a sanctuary and a refuge and a place where love lives and thrives and grows, and you think about how you are going to do that together with him because you are a team and you are partners and you are parents and you are lovers and you are friends and you are all of those things and you are enough, and you think about how that is the truth that you have been missing. And you think about how you're going to hold on to that truth, and you are going to live that truth, and you are going to teach that truth to your children so that they can build their own beautiful families one day, and you think about how that is the legacy you are building, and you think about how it is a legacy worth building, and you think about how you're building it right now, one pancake at a time, one smile at a time, one hug at a time. And you think about how that is the most important work you will ever do. The transformation. You wake up one morning and you realize that something has changed inside you, and it is not a small change, it is a big change, and it happens slowly, over days and weeks, and you did not notice it happening because change is like that, it creeps in while you are not looking, and then one day you wake up and you are different, and you do not know exactly when you became different, but you know that you are, and you get out of bed, and you look in the mirror, and the woman looking back at you is the same woman, but she is also different because her eyes are softer, and her shoulders are less tight, and her mouth is turned up at the corners in a way that was not there before, and you think about how transformation is not about becoming someone new, it is about becoming who you always were, but you were too scared to be, and you think about how you have been scared for so long that you forgot who you were underneath the fear. And you think about how the anniversary was not the thing that broke you, it was the thing that woke you up, because sometimes you need to hit rock bottom to realize that you have been living your life on autopilot, and you have been going through the motions, and you have been doing what you are supposed to do instead of what you want to do, and you think about how you came to America to be free, and you ended up creating a cage for yourself out of expectations and obligations and shoulds, and you think about how you are going to break out of that cage starting now, and you walk to the kitchen and he is there making coffee and he looks at you and he smiles, and you think about how his smile is different now too, because it is not the smile of someone who is trying to make up for something, it is the smile of someone who is genuinely happy to see you, and you think about how that is the difference between performing love and actually loving, and you think about how you have both been performing for so long that you forgot how to actually be with each other, and you think about how you are learning to be with each other now, and it is hard, and it is uncomfortable, and it is also the most beautiful thing you have ever done, and you say good morning, and he says good morning, and the words are simple, but they are loaded with meaning because they mean I am here, and I see you, and I choose you, and you think about how choosing each other every day is the most important thing you can do, and you think about how you have been choosing him every day without realizing it, and you think about how he has been choosing you every day without realizing it, and you think about how you are going to be intentional about choosing each other from now on, because intentionality is what separates love from habit, and you think about how your marriage has been a habit, and you're going to turn it into a choice, and you sit down at the table and he puts a cup of coffee in front of you, and you think about how coffee is a small thing, but it is also a big thing, because it means that someone thought about you, and someone remembered what you like, and someone wanted to make you happy, and you think about how you have been taking the coffee for granted because you have been so focused on the anniversary that you forgot all the mornings he made you coffee, and you think about how you're going to stop taking things for granted and you're going to start appreciating everything because everything is a gift. And you think about the word appreciation and how it comes from the Latin word appreciare, which means to set a price on, and you think about how you have been setting a price on your marriage based on one day instead of all the days, and you think about how that is not fair, and you think about how you're going to change that, and you say, I want to tell you something, and he says, I am listening, and you say, I have been thinking about the anniversary, and I have been thinking about how I made it mean something that it did not mean, and he says, what do you mean? And you say, I mean that I made your forgetting mean that you do not love me, and that is not true because you love me every day in 1,000 small ways, and I have been so focused on the one thing you did not do that I could not see all the things you do, and he looks at you, and his eyes are wet, and he says, I have been thinking about something too, and you say, what? And he says, I have been thinking about how I made your anger mean something that it did not mean, and you say, what did it mean? And he says, I made your anger mean that you do not love me, and that is not true because you love me every day in 1,000 small ways, and I have been so focused on your anger that I could not see all the ways you show me love, and you think about how you have both been making each other's actions mean something that they do not mean, and you think about how that is what happens in marriage. You create stories about each other, and the stories are not always true, and you think about how you are going to stop creating stories and start asking questions because questions are the thing that connects you and assumptions are the thing that separates you, and you think about how you have been assuming the worst about each other. And you think about how you are going to assume the best from now on because assuming the best is the foundation of trust, and trust is the foundation of love, and you think about the psychology of relationships and how the most successful couples are the ones who make positive assumptions about each other, and you think about how you have been making negative assumptions, and you think about how that has been poisoning your marriage, and you think about how you're going to stop poisoning your marriage and start nourishing it, and you say, I want to make a promise, and he says, what? And you say, I promise to ask you before I assume, and I promise to tell you when I am hurt, and I promise to give you the benefit of the doubt, and I promise to see the good in you even when it is hard, and he says, I promise the same, and you think about how promises are not just words, promises are actions, and you are going to act on these promises every single day, and you think about how transformation is not about one big moment, it is about 1,000 small moments, and you think about how you are having 1,000 small moments of transformation right now, and you think about how you are becoming a new person and a new couple and a new family, and you think about how that is beautiful, and you think about how that is hard, and you think about how you are going to do it anyway because the alternative is staying stuck, and you do not want to be stuck anymore because being stuck is not living, it is just existing, and you want to live, you want to feel, you want to love with your whole heart even though it is scary, and you think about how loving with your whole heart is the bravest thing you can do because loving means being vulnerable, and vulnerable means being open to being hurt, and you have been hurt and you survived, and you're going to keep loving because love is the point of everything, and you think about how you have been holding back your love because you were afraid of being hurt again, and you think about how holding back your love is not protecting you, it is protecting you from nothing because the hurt is already there, and the only way to heal is to love through it, and you think about how you are going to love through it every single day, and you are going to show up, and you are going to be present, and you are going to be real, and you are going to be honest, and you are going to be vulnerable, and you are going to be brave, and you think about how that is the transformation that is happening inside you, and it is not a transformation that happened overnight. It is a transformation that has been happening for weeks since the anniversary, and it is still happening, and it will keep happening for the rest of your life, because transformation is not a destination, it is a journey, and you are on the journey, and you are not alone because he is on the journey with you, and you are walking together, and you are holding hands, and you are facing the future together, And you think about how that is the most beautiful thing in the world, and you think about how you almost lost it because you were so focused on the past, and you think about how you are going to let go of the past and embrace the future, and you're going to do it together, and you're going to be okay, and you are going to be more than okay, you're going to be happy, and you think about how happiness is not something that happens to you, happiness is something that you create, and you are creating it right now in this kitchen with this coffee and this man and this love, and you think about how that is the transformation that matters. Slow English learning journey. You are sitting in your English conversation class and the teacher is talking about something and you are not really listening because your mind is somewhere else and you are thinking about the anniversary and you are thinking about your husband and you're thinking about how much has changed in the last few weeks, and you are thinking about how you are different now, and you are thinking about how the English language is different now too. Because you are not just learning words anymore, you are learning how to express yourself, and you think about how learning English is like learning to love, because both require you to be vulnerable, and both require you to make mistakes, and both require you to keep trying even when it is hard, and you think about how you have been learning English for 5 years and you still make mistakes and you still feel embarrassed sometimes and you still struggle to find the right words, and you think about how that is okay because learning is a process and love is a process and you are in the middle of both, and you look around the room and you see the other students and you see the same struggle in their eyes and you see the same determination, and you think about how you are all on the same journey and you are all in this together, and you think about how learning a new language is one of the hardest things you can do because it requires you to be a beginner again, and being a beginner is humiliating because you are used to being competent in your own language, and suddenly you cannot say the simplest things and you feel like a child and you feel stupid and you feel invisible, and you think about how that is exactly how you felt on your anniversary when you stood in the kitchen holding the spatula and feeling like you did not matter. And you think about how the two things are connected because being invisible in your marriage and being invisible in a new country are the same feeling, and you think about how you have been feeling invisible for 5 years, and you think about how you are done feeling invisible, and you raise your hand and the teacher looks at you and you say, I want to tell a story, and the teacher says, go ahead, and you take a deep breath and you start talking, and your English is not perfect, but it is real, and you tell the story of your anniversary, and you tell the story of your husband forgetting, and you tell the story of the park and the pancakes and the transformation, and you tell the story of how you are learning to love in a new way, and you tell the story of how you are learning to be seen, and you tell the story of how you are learning to see yourself. And when you finish, the room is silent, and then the teacher starts clapping, and everyone starts clapping, and you are crying because you have never told a story like that before, and you have never been so honest, and you have never felt so seen, and you think about how this is what language is for connecting, and language is for sharing, and language is for being seen, and you have been learning English for 5 years, but you have never really used it to connect until now, and you think about how you have been using English to survive, but you have not been using it to live, and you think about how there is a difference between surviving and living, and you are ready to start living, and you think about the psychology of language learning, and how language is not just about words, it is about identity, and when you learn a new language, you become a new person, and you have been becoming a new person for 5 years, but you have not fully embraced that new person because you have been holding on to the old one, and you think about how you are going to let go of the old one and fully become the new one, and you think about how the new one speaks English with an accent and makes mistakes and sometimes cannot find the right word, but the new one is brave and honest and real, and you love the new one, and you think about how your husband loves the new one too. Because the new one is the woman he married, and the new one is the woman he fell in love with, and you think about how you have been hiding the new one from him because you were afraid that he would not like her, or that she would not be good enough, or that she would not be American enough, and you Think about how ridiculous that is because he married you knowing that you were not American, and he fell in love with you because you are not American, and you think about how your accent is not a weakness, it is a strength because it means you are bilingual, and it means you are brave, and it means you left everything you knew to start a new life, and you think about how your mistakes are not failures, they are evidence of trying, and you think about how the trying is the point, and you think about how you are going to keep trying, and you are going to keep making mistakes, and you are going to keep learning, and you're going to keep growing, and you're going to keep loving, and you think about how this is the transformation that happened inside you, and it happened because you were brave enough to tell your story, and you were brave enough to be vulnerable, and you were brave enough to be seen, and you think about how telling your story in English was the hardest thing you have ever done because you were afraid of being judged, and you were afraid of sounding stupid, and you were afraid of being misunderstood, and you did it anyway because you knew that staying silent was worse, and you think about how silence is the enemy of love, and silence is the enemy of connection, and silence is the enemy of healing, and you have been silent for too long, and you are done being silent, and you are going to speak, and you are going to be heard, and you are going to be seen, and you think about how the English language is not your mother tongue, but it is becoming your voice, and your voice matters, and your story matters, and you matter, and you think about how you're going to use your voice to tell your story, and you're going to use your story to help other people who are struggling, and you are going to use your experience to show other immigrants that they are not alone, and that they are seen, and that they matter, and you think about how that is the legacy you want to leave, and you think about how you're going to start leaving it today by speaking up and being heard and being seen, and you think about how your English teacher told you that the best way to learn a language is to use it, and you have been using it to order coffee and buy groceries and talk to teachers, but you have not been using it to express your heart, and you think about how expressing your heart is the most important thing you can do with a language because the heart is where the truth lies, and you have been keeping your truth locked inside, and you're going to let it out, and you're going to let it out in English, and you're going to let it out with your accent and your mistakes and your imperfections, and you're going to let it out because the world needs to hear it, and your husband needs to hear it, and your children need to hear it, and you need to hear it, and you think about how this is the real gift of learning English, not the ability to get a job or pass a test or navigate a new country, but the ability to find your voice and speak your truth and connect with others on a deeper level. And you think about how you have been learning English for 5 years, and you are just now understanding what it is really for, and you think about how it is never too late to learn, and it is never too late to change, and it is never too late to find your voice, and you are finding your voice right now in this room with these people, and you are speaking your truth, and you are being heard, and you are being seen, and that is the most beautiful thing you have ever experienced. And you think about how you're going to keep speaking, and you are going to keep telling your story, and you are going to keep connecting with others. Because connection is the reason we are here, and connection is the reason we learn language, and connection is the reason we love, and you think about how you are connected to your husband now in a way that you were not before, and you are connected to yourself in a way that you were not before, and you are connected to this new country in a way that you were not before, and you think about how that is the transformation that has happened inside you, and you are grateful for it, even though the journey was painful, because the pain was the teacher, and the pain was the catalyst, and the pain was the thing that woke you up, and you think about how you are going to be awake from now on, and you are going to be present, and you are going to be real, and you are going to be you, and you are going to love, and you are going to laugh, and you are going to live, and you're going to do it all in English. Because English is the language of your new life, and your new life is beautiful, and you are beautiful, and you are enough, and you are seen. The happy ending. You are standing in the kitchen, and the clock on the microwave is blinking, and the chicken is cooking, and the vegetables are steaming, and you are wearing that dress that you bought from the small boutique in downtown Portland, and you are wearing the earrings that your mother gave you, and you are holding a spatula, but this time everything is different because this time you are not standing there alone wondering if he will remember, because you know he will remember because he has been planning this for weeks, and you know this because you found the receipt in his jacket pocket and you pretended not to see it, and you have been pretending for weeks because you want to be surprised and you want him to have his moment and you want to see the look on his face when he walks through the door, and you want to see the pride in his eyes because he remembered, and you think about how much has changed since the last time you stood in this kitchen, and you think about how you are not the same woman, and he is not the same man, and your marriage is not the same marriage because you have done the work and you have been through the fire, and you have come out the other side, and you think about how the fire did not destroy you, it refined you, and you think about how gold is purified by fire, and you think about how your love is like gold. Now, because it has been tested and it has survived, and it is stronger and more beautiful than before, and you hear the key turn in the lock, and your heart does not drop this time because you are not afraid, and you are not waiting for disappointment, because you know that he has been planning, and you know that he remembers, and you know that he loves you, and you know that your love is real, and you hear the door open, and he walks in, and he is carrying flowers, and he is carrying a gift, and he is carrying a card, and he is carrying the weight of everything that happened, and he is carrying it with grace, and you look at him, and you think about how he is not the same man who forgot because that man was lost, and this man is found, and that man was broken, and this man is healed, and that man was scared, and this man is brave, and you think about how bravery is not the absence of fear, it is the action taken in the presence of fear, and he is acting with bravery right now because he is showing up, and he is being present, and he is being real, and he says happy anniversary, and his voice is steady, and his eyes are clear, and he says, I know this is a year late, but I want to make it right, and you say you already have, and he says not yet, and he walks over to you, and he hands you the flowers, and he hands you the gift, and he hands you the card, and you open the card, and it says, I am sorry for every moment I made you feel invisible, and I promise to spend the rest of my life making sure you know that you're seen and you feel tears in your eyes, because these are not just words, these are promises that he has been keeping every day since the anniversary, and you think about how he has been keeping them through small gestures and consistent effort and honest conversations, and you think about how that is the real meaning of love, and you think about how you almost gave up, and you think about how glad you are that you did not give up, because this moment right here is worth all the pain and all the struggle and all the hard work, and you hug him and you hold him, and you think about how a hug can heal wounds, and you think about how you are healing together, and you think about how healing is not linear, and healing is not fast, and healing is not easy, but healing is happening, and you are both healing, and you are both growing, and you are both becoming better versions of yourselves, and you think about how you are not the same woman who stood in this kitchen a year ago, because that woman was scared, and that woman was angry, and that woman was invisible, and you're none of those things anymore because you have found your voice, and you have found your power, and you have found your worth, and you think about how your worth was always there, you just did not see it, and you think about how he helped you see it even though he was the one who made you feel invisible, because sometimes the people who hurt us are the people who help us grow, and you think about how that is a paradox, and you think about how life is full of paradoxes, and love is full of paradoxes, and marriage is full of paradoxes, and you are learning to hold the paradoxes without needing to resolve them, and you sit down to dinner, and the chicken is perfect, and the vegetables are perfect, and the conversation is perfect because you are talking, and you are laughing, and you are connecting, and you are present, and you think about how presence is the greatest gift you can give someone, and you're giving it to each other, and you think about how you're going to keep giving it every single day for the rest of your lives, and you think about how the future is bright, and the future is full of possibility, and the future is something you're going to build together. And you think about your children and how they are going to grow up in a home where love is practiced every day and where forgiveness is given freely, and where mistakes are opportunities to grow, and you think about how that is the greatest gift you can give them, and you think about how they are going to learn from you, and they're going to learn that love is not about being perfect, it is about being present, and they're going to learn that marriage is not about never fighting, it is about fighting fair, and they're going to learn that happiness is not something that happens to you, it is something that you create, and you think about how you are creating happiness right now at this table with this food and this man and this love and you. Think about how you're going to keep creating it every single day for the rest of your lives, and you think about how the anniversary that almost broke you ended up being the thing that saved you because it woke you up and it made you see what was really important and it made you fight for what you love and it made you realize that love is worth fighting for, and you think about how you are going to keep fighting for it every single day. Because that is what love is fighting for each other even when it is hard, especially when it is hard, and you think about how you are not afraid of hard anymore, because you know that you can survive hard, and you know that you can grow through hard, and you know that hard can make you stronger, and you think about how you are stronger now, and you are wiser now, and you are braver now, and you are more in love now than you have ever been, and you think about how that is the happy ending that you were looking for, and it is not a fairy tale ending because fairy tales are for children. And this is real, and real is better because real is honest, and real is messy, and real is hard, and real is beautiful, and you think about how real love is the best kind of love because it is not based on illusion, it is based on truth, and the truth is that you love him, and he loves you, and you are going to be okay, and you're going to be more than okay, you're going to be happy, and you're going to be joyful, and you are going to be grateful, and you are going to live your lives with intention and purpose and love, and you think about how that is the most beautiful thing you can imagine, and you think about how you are living it right now, and you think about how you are going to keep living it for the rest of your lives, and you think about how you're going to look back on this anniversary, and you're going to remember it not as the day he forgot, but as the day everything changed, and the day you started fighting for your love, and the day you became the couple you were always meant to be, and you think about how that is the happy ending, and it is not an ending at all because endings are just beginnings in disguise, and this is the beginning of the rest of your lives together, and you are ready for it, and he is ready for it, and your children are ready for it, and the future is bright and full of promise, and you are going to walk into it together holding hands and full of hope and full of love, and you think about how hope is the thing that keeps you going and love is the thing that makes it all worth it, and you have both in abundance, and you are grateful, and you are happy, and you are at peace, and you think about how peace is the best feeling in the world, and you have found it, and you are holding on to it, and you are never going to let it go, because you know now that peace is not something that happens to you. Peace is something that you create, and you have created it together through hard work and honesty and forgiveness and love, and you're going to keep creating it every single day for the rest of your lives, and that is the happy ending, and that is the truth, and you are living it, and you are loving it, and you are grateful for every single moment of it. Final message for viewers. You have been listening to this story, and maybe you are sitting in your car, or your living room, or your bedroom, and maybe you are holding your phone, or your tablet, or your computer, and maybe you are thinking about your own life, and your own relationships, and your own struggles, and maybe you are wondering if your story can have a happy ending too, and I want to tell you that it can, because every story can have a happy ending if you are willing to write it, and every marriage can be saved if you are willing to fight for it, and every heart can be healed if you are willing to let it heal, and I am not saying that it will be easy because it will not be easy, and I am not saying that it will be fast because it will not be fast, and I am not saying that there will not be setbacks because there will be setbacks, but I am saying that it is possible because I lived it, and I am living it, and I am proof that you can come back from the edge, and you can rebuild what was broken, and you can find love again, even when you thought it was lost. And you think about how you came to this video looking for English practice and you found a story, and maybe the story is more than a story because maybe the story is a mirror and maybe you see yourself in it, and maybe you see your own struggles and your own fears and your own hopes, and maybe you are realizing that learning English is not just about vocabulary and grammar, it is about finding your voice and telling your story and connecting with others. And you think about how language is the bridge that connects us to each other, and you think about how you are building that bridge every time you practice, and every time you try, and every time you make a mistake and keep going, and you think about how that is what the story is really about. Not the anniversary or the forgetting or the forgiveness, but the courage to keep going when everything in you wants to give up, and the courage to keep loving when love feels impossible, and the courage to keep learning when learning feels hopeless. And you think about how you are brave for being here. And you are brave for listening, and you are brave for trying, and you are brave for not giving up, and you think about how your English does not have to be perfect for you to be heard, and your love does not have to be perfect for you to be loved, and your life does not have to be perfect for you to be happy. And you think about how perfection is the enemy of progress, and you have been waiting for perfection, and you have been holding yourself back because you are not perfect, and you have been holding your relationships back because they are not perfect, and you have been holding your life back because it is not perfect. And you think about how you are going to let go of perfection and embrace progress, because progress is what matters, and progress is what heals, and progress is what transforms. And you think about how you have been transformed by this story, and you think about how you are going to take what you have learned and apply it to your own life, and you think about how you are going to forgive yourself for your mistakes, and you are going to forgive others for theirs, and you are going to love more freely and speak more honestly and live more fully. And you think about how that is the real gift of this story, not the English practice, but the reminder that you are not alone, and the reminder that your struggles are shared, and the reminder that hope is always available to you if you are willing to reach for it. And you think about how you're going to reach for it right now, and you're going to hold on to it, and you're not going to let go, because hope is the thing that keeps you going, and hope is the thing that makes life worth living, and hope is the thing that connects you to others and to yourself and to the future. And you think about how the future is bright, and the future is full of possibility, and the future is yours to create, and you're going to create it with intention and with purpose and with love, and you are going to do it in English, because English is the language of your new life, and your new life is waiting for you, and you are ready for it. And you think about how every word you learn is a step toward that new life, and every sentence you speak is a connection to that new life, and every story you tell is a piece of that new life, and you are building that new life right now, one word at a time, one sentence at a time, one story at a time. And you think about how that is beautiful, and you think about how that is hard, and you think about how that is worth it, because you are worth it, and your dreams are worth it, and your future is worth it. And you think about how you are going to keep going, and you are going to keep trying, and you are going to keep learning, because that is what it means to be alive, and that is what it means to be human, and that is what it means to love. And you think about how love is the reason we are all here, and love is the reason we keep going, and love is the reason we learn and grow and change and become better versions of ourselves. And you think about how you are becoming a better version of yourself right now, because you are listening, and you are learning, and you are opening your heart to possibility. And you think about how that is the real happy ending, not the one that happens in movies, but the one that happens in real life when you decide to show up for yourself and for the people you love and for the life you want to live. And you think about how you are going to show up starting today, and you are going to show up tomorrow, and you're going to show up every day after that, because showing up is what matters, and showing up is what makes the difference, and showing up is what transforms your life. And you think about how you're going to transform your life, and you're going to do it in English, and you're going to do it with courage, and you're going to do it with hope, and you are going to do it with love, and you think about how that is the most beautiful thing you can imagine, and you think about how you are going to live it, and you think about how you are going to be grateful for every moment of it, because every moment is a gift, and every moment is an opportunity, and every moment is a chance to start again. And you are starting again right now with this story and with this lesson and with this new understanding of what is possible, and you think about how anything is possible if you are willing to believe it, and you are willing to work for it, and you are willing to fight for it, and you are willing to love through it, and you think about how you are willing, and you are ready, and you are capable, and you are enough, and you are seen, and you are heard, and you matter, and you are loved, and you think about how that is the message I want to leave you with, because that is the message that saved me, and that is the message that healed my marriage, and that is the message that transformed my life, and I am sharing it with you. Because I believe in you, and I believe in your story, and I believe in your happy ending, and I know that you can have it because you are here, and you are trying, and you are not giving up, and that is everything, and that is enough, and that is the most beautiful thing in the world. And you think about how you're going to take this message, and you're going to carry it with you, and you are going to share it with others, because sharing is how love grows, and sharing is how healing happens, and sharing is how we all get through this life together. And you think about how we are all in this together. And we are all connected, and we are all learning, and we are all growing, and we are all becoming. And that is the most beautiful thing about being human. And that is the most beautiful thing about being alive. And that is the most beautiful thing about being in love. And you are alive, and you are human. And you are loved, and that is everything, and that is enough. And that is the happy ending that I wish for you. And that is the happy ending that I know you can have, because I have it, and I am living it, and I am grateful for every single moment of it. And I am grateful for you for listening, and for being here, and for being brave enough to be part of this journey. And I want you to know that you are not alone, and you are not forgotten, and you are not invisible, because I see you, and I hear you, and I am with you, and we are in this together, and that is the most beautiful thing in the world. You have just listened to a story about forgetting and remembering, about breaking and healing, about losing and finding. And maybe you are sitting there right now with tears in your eyes, or a smile on your face, or a lump in your throat, because this story touched something deep inside you. And that is the power of storytelling, and that is the power of language, and that is the power of being human, because we are all connected by our struggles and our triumphs and our hopes and our fears, and your story matters just as much as mine, and your journey matters just as much as mine. And your happy ending is waiting for you, just like mine was waiting for me. And you think about how you came here to practice English. But you found something more. You found a reminder that you are not alone. And you found a reminder that healing is possible. And you found a reminder that love is worth fighting for. And you think about how learning English is not just about words. It is about connecting with others and sharing your truth and finding your voice. And you have a voice, and your voice matters, and your story deserves to be told. And you are going to tell it not just in English, but in every language that lives in your heart, because your story is powerful, and your story is beautiful, and your story is the thing that will connect you to others and help you heal and help you grow and help you become the person you were always meant to be. And you think about how this video was not just a lesson, it was an invitation to look at your own life and your own relationships and your own struggles, and ask yourself, what am I fighting for, and who am I fighting for, and am I willing to do the work? And you think about how the answer is yes, because you are here, and you are trying, and you are not giving up, and that is everything. And you think about how the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step, and you have taken that step by watching this video, and you're going to take the next step, and the next step, and the next step, until you reach your destination. And your destination is not a place, it is a state of being, a state of peace and love and fulfillment. And you're going to get there because you are brave, and you are strong, and you are capable, and you are enough. And you think about how you are going to keep practicing your English, and you're going to keep telling your story, and you're going to keep connecting with others, and you're going to keep growing and learning and becoming, and you are going to do it all with courage and with hope and with love, because that is what it means to be alive, and that is what it means to be human, and that is what it means to be you, and you are beautiful, and you are valuable, and you are worthy of every good thing that is coming to you, and you think about how the future is bright, and the future is full of possibility, and the future is yours to create, and you are creating it right now with every word you learn and every sentence you speak and every story you tell, and you're going to keep creating it, because that is what you were born to do, and you were born to shine, and you were born to love, and you were born to be happy, and you're going to do all of those things because you deserve them, and because you are capable of them, and because you are worthy of them, and you think about how this is the message I want to leave you with, and this is the gift I want to give you, because you have given me the gift of your attention and your time and your openness, and I am grateful for that. And I want to honor that by telling you the truth, and the truth is that you are amazing, and you are powerful, and you are unstoppable. And you're going to achieve everything you set your mind to, because you have the heart and the determination and the courage to do it, and you are going to do it in English, and you're going to do it with grace, and you're going to do it with joy, and you're going to inspire others along the way. Because that is what happens when you live your truth, and you share your story, and you connect with others. You become a beacon of hope and a source of inspiration, and a reminder that anything is possible, and you are going to be that for someone, because someone needs to see you succeed, and someone needs to see you thrive, and someone needs to see you happy so that they can believe that they can do it too, and that is the most beautiful thing you can do for another person, and you're going to do it without even trying, because just by being yourself and living your life and pursuing your dreams, you are showing others what is possible, and that is the greatest gift you can give, and you think about how you are giving that gift right now by being here, and by listening, and by opening your heart, and I want to thank you for that, because it takes courage to be open, and it takes courage to be vulnerable, and it takes courage to believe that things can get better, and you have all of that courage, and you are using it right now, and that is beautiful, and that is powerful, and that is the thing that will change your life. And you think about how I am honored to be part of your journey, and I am honored to share this story with you, and I am honored to be connected to you in this way, and I hope that you'll continue on this journey with me, because there is so much more to learn, and so much more to share, and so much more to discover, and we are just getting started, and the best is yet to come, and you are going to be there for it, and I am going to be there for it, and we are going to do it together, and that is the most beautiful thing I can imagine. And you think about how you are going to subscribe to this channel, and you are going to hit that bell notification, and you are going to join this community of learners and dreamers and believers, because you belong here, and you are wanted here, and you are needed here, and your voice matters here, and your story matters here, and you're going to be part of something bigger than yourself, something that is changing lives and changing hearts and changing the world, one word at a time, one story at a time, one connection at a time, and you're going to be part of that, and that is incredible, and that is meaningful, and that is the legacy you are building, and you are building it right now by being here, and by listening, and by deciding to take the next step, and you are going to take that step, and you are going to keep taking steps until you reach the life you have always dreamed of, and you're going to look back on this moment, and you're going to smile, because this is where it all began. This is where you decided that you were worth it, and your dreams were worth it, and your happy ending was worth it, and you were right, because you are worth it, and your dreams are worth it, and your happy ending is worth it, and it is waiting for you, and all you have to do is keep going, and you're going to keep going, because that is who you are. And that is what you do, and that is how you win, and you're going to win because you are a winner, and you were born to win, and you are going to win in English, and you're going to win in love, and you're going to win in life, and that is the truth, and that is the promise, and that is the happy ending that you deserve, and you're going to have it because you are going to create it, and I will be here cheering you on every step of the way, and we are going to celebrate your victories, and we are going to support you through your struggles, and we are going to be a community that lifts each other up and reminds each other that we are not alone, and that is the most beautiful thing in the world, and you are part of it now, and I am so grateful that you are, and I cannot wait to see what you do next, and I cannot wait to hear your story, and I cannot wait to watch you grow and become everything you were always meant to be, and you are going to be amazing, and you are going to be extraordinary, and you are going to be you, and that is enough, and that is everything, and that is the most beautiful thing I can imagine, and you think about how this is just the beginning and you are ready for it, and you are excited for it, and you're going to embrace it with open arms and open heart and open mind, because that is who you are, and that is what you do, and that is how you win, and you are going to win, and I am going to be right here with you, and we are going to win together, and that is the most beautiful thing in the whole wide world.